how to explain to clients your transition to the RIA model. That is today's question on the Transition to RIA question and answer series. It is episode number 116. Hi, I'm Brad Wales with Transition to RIA, where I help you understand everything there is to know about why and how to transition your practice to the RIA model. If you're not already there, if you head on over to transitiontoria.com, you can find all of the resources I make available from this entire series in video format, podcast format. I have articles, I have white papers, all kinds of things to help you better understand the model. Again, transitiontoria.com. Okay, on today's episode, this is kind of an extension of a prior episode I had done where I discussed ways of how to explain essentially the RIA model to your clients to help them understand the difference between an RIA and essentially maybe a broker-dealer where you're at now and what this custodian part of all of it is. And so certainly feel free to check out that episode as well. But this episode is going to be essentially how to explain to clients or some tips on how to explain to clients that you're reaching out to right upon the transition. So essentially day one, you're reaching out to clients. How should you explain it to them? What are the things you should say, not say, those sorts of things. This is not an exhaustive list of everything that could be perhaps relevant, but I did come up with 9 tips that I frequently talk to advisors about that are on the verge of making the transition that I thought would be helpful to share on this episode as well. But I will start it with the caveat that some of you have potentially non-solicit or potentially even non-compete language in agreements you have signed with your current firm. And all of that needs to be kind of researched. All that needs to be considered. I often refer to it as you need to know how to navigate that process. If you have such clauses, that doesn't mean you can't make a transition, but it does impact perhaps when you say things, how you say things, how you contact clients. So just at a high level, that's absolutely something I walk advisors through what I'm talking with, and at times it's important to bring in actual legal advice as well, so I can walk you through that also. But for the sake of this episode, we're going to kind of act like you're not in that situation, or you are, and you've already gone through those steps and you know how to navigate it successfully. So everything I say going forward, I'm not going to keep repeating the same disclaimer over and over again. Careful, if you have non-solicit, you need to do it slightly different. These are just some general tips. You will need to apply them to your specific situation based on your own tastes and how you communicate with your clients and what those possible legal considerations are and how to successfully navigate your departure. So with that, some tips in no particular order per se, but I do think these would be helpful. So again, this is when you are reaching out to clients, you've left your firm, you're reaching out to clients to explain your new path, and obviously you'd like them to come with you to the new path and how you're going about having that conversation or explaining it. So number one, do not bash your prior firm. Clearly, if you do have, and this is not the disclaimer just that I wasn't going to say, but clearly if you have non-solicit rubber, it's certainly not going to help in that case. But even if you don't have that, even if you're fully independent, even if you don't have to worry about those considerations, it's just never good to bash your prior firm. You might have reached a point with extreme frustration with them, or over the years things have got worse, perhaps the services got worse, or maybe you just at this point no longer like the people that are running it. Perhaps no matter what the circumstances are, there's little to nothing to gain by bashing your prior firm going forward for a couple reasons. As a start point, your clients might wonder, well, if that firm's so bad, why have you been with them for so long? And why has my account or accounts been with them for so long? So help yourself. Don't even introduce that concept into it. And then there's just nothing to gain. Don't poke a sleeping bear kind of thing. You're moving on to greener pastures. You've gone through a whole process to reach this point and decided making a transition is in your best interest, is in your client's best interest. And this is exciting, and you should just be looking forward. Even if you have those grievances, you just have to let it go. There's nothing to gain. So again, do not bash your prior firm. I've seen some advisors do some very stupid things that has came back to haunt them, sometimes in significant fashion. It's just not worth it, no matter how independent you might think you are now. and oh, they can't do anything about it no matter what I say, just don't do it. There's enough positive reasons for why you're making the step to not bring that into it. So that's the first tip. The second tip, always keep in mind, while there's a lot of reasons you as the advisor might be making this move to the RIA model, and that's what I talk about a lot of these episodes, is how and why it's advantageous for you as the advisor, your team, your staff, the economics, the motivation, the flexibility, all those sorts of things might be great for you. At the end of the day, while you have clients that might be, happy for you, particularly if you have entrepreneur clients, they often are very receptive and excited for you. Oh, wow, you're starting your own business with this new path. But at the end of the day, all that matters for the client is what's in it for them. So as you think about how you're going to explain this move to clients, and there might be some things that you need to explain that as a result benefit you and your team as well, but your guide and light for how you decide to describe it, how you decide to communicate to clients should be, again, what's in it for them? What are they gaining by making this move? And just to give you a few quick examples, maybe it's your ability to incorporate new and better technology into the space. And so that will in turn help the client, because there's going to be some cool tools we're going to be rolling out here over the next 6-12 months that we're excited to share with you. It might be access now to additional investment resources and solutions that you didn't have before. So that's a benefit to the client as well. So be thinking about, as you explain this, what's in it for them, not so much what's in it for you. Just to put it bluntly, they don't really care what's in it for you. Again, the entrepreneur client might be happy for you. Hey, what's in it for them? Because you are also asking them to go through some steps here to follow you to this new path. So they want to know, why should I, what's in it for me as the client? That should be your overall guide in life about how all of this is communicated. Okay, tip number 3, I am a believer, right? This first part's nothing groundbreaking. You want to kind of mentally or literally on paper, however you do it, put your clients in the proverbial A, B, and C buckets. So your A clients, your B clients, C clients, then that's likely your plan of attack of the order that you're gonna reach out to them, you or the members of your team. But while you might think, okay, clearly the A clients are who I should be reaching out to first, I often suggest to advisors and teams that they reach out to, say, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 3, whatever number you want, B clients first. And the reason is because the more times you explain this, the more conversations you have with clients, the better at it you will get. So your very first call, you're going to have put a lot of thought to it. It's probably going to be pretty good. It's not going to be as good as the 5th time you explain it or the 10th time you explain it. So essentially practice, if you will, on some B clients. I mean, you could even do C clients, but for sake of time, you don't want to go too far off the track here with your top tier clients. Get a feel for having that message, whether that's because you're leaving voicemails for folks and you're kind of practicing how you're saying that voicemail, or they answer, or they call you back. Practice a few times on those B clients, get your kind of spiel down, and you will very quickly get to the point where you're absolutely comfortable, absolutely confident in how you're describing it. And then by all means, shift to your A clients and start going through them, and you'll feel much more confident and polished in how you're communicating that. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4, kind of related to the last one. So I've worked with several advisors and teams, and this is a little more doable if you're in an independent space, because maybe the information that you're allowed to take with you, that have kind of built out a multifaceted plan of attack that they are going to be calling clients. They are going to be sending a blast email to all clients. There are even, I've heard of kind of automated text going out to some or all clients. And that's fine. And you can consider that, again, assuming that's going to work for your circumstances. But I would absolutely make sure that if you're going to do something, for instance, a blast email out to all clients, think about primarily your top clients. And there's likely some subset. I mean, arguably, what I'm about to say you could do with all, but logistically, it just might not be possible. But there's arguably some subset that are very important to you and your practice, that perhaps have been very good clients of yours for a long time. They're loyal to you. They deserve to hear it from you first before they get the same email that perhaps a few hundred other clients get. And so think about that, of who you want that to be. Now, sometimes there's not a lot of time to do all this because it might make sense that email needs to go out relatively soon after you've resigned from your prior firm, you're making the move. So you don't necessarily even have to talk to them directly, some of these top tier clients that you might, if you reach them and you get their voicemail and you leave a voicemail, or at least you've checked that box that they will know you attempted to contact them before they got some email that appears to have gone to everyone. And so you'll at least get credit for that in their eyes. And I strongly encourage you, again, if you're going to use, in addition to reaching out on the phone, some sort of email blast, ask yourself who should be contacted first by yourself or people on your team before that goes out. Again, perfect world, you contact everyone. That's just generally not possible. Again, if you're going to do this email blast as well, because you're probably thinking, oh, I want that email blast to go out, within a day or two, and maybe you haven't had a chance to call everyone, the A, B, and C clients at that point. So just something about who for sure should hear it from you first before any other way it is communicated. So that's number 4. Number 5, tip number 5, don't say any more than you need to. Now, at first, that sounds like I'm suggesting you hide something. No, there's nothing to hide. You can fully explain this to clients and help them understand why you're doing this and, again, what's in it for them. I'm not saying hide anything. I'm also, though, saying most of your clients are just going to be excited for you. Most of your clients are going to be, sure, just tell me whatever you need me to do, click on some buttons, fill out some paperwork, whatever, and they're going to go along with it. If you, in turn, the kind of word vomit, if you hit them with an 8-point bulleted explanation of why you're making this move, perhaps they weren't going to have any concern at all about this. And now, because you're sitting there draining on about 8 different reasons this is good for them, they might start to have a little concern over this. And so the analogy I used earlier this year is at the dentist. I've been going to the same dentist for 10 years. Fantastic dentists. I love the whole team. I've never felt they were suggesting anything that wasn't appropriate or that I didn't need for my teeth. And here recently, I needed this more kind of intensive treatment. And the hygienist was explaining that to me. And sure, no problem if that's what I need. Now, I'm not excited about it. It's not necessarily fun to do. I wasn't excited about having to pay for it. Again, I trust them, though. I've been going to them for 10 years. But the hygienist kind of belabored on about why I needed this, And then without me asking, she went and got the dentist. And the dentist is fantastic. But he comes in and he's given me kind of all these reasons why I need this procedure. And finally, I said, guys, I'm on board. I trust you. And all of a sudden, I'm like, should I be worried about this? I wasn't worried about it the first time you said it. But the way you guys are kind of going on about it, and it makes me worried that there's something here I should be worried about, or I should be asking questions. And it turns out that wasn't the case. And I don't know why they kind of overloaded me with information. I guess they thought it was being helpful. But the point is, don't overdo it where it doesn't need to be overdone. Again, you're not hiding anything. Just don't overdo it where it doesn't need to be overdone. You will have, and you know who those clients are. There will be maybe that engineering client or the client that's an engineer that will want the 8 bullet points, and that's fine. And you know who that person is or people are, and you can hit those folks with the full 8-point bullets. Don't overdo it with the other people. There's no reason to cause concern where there isn't any need for concern. Number 6. Yep. So as you work through this, you have a lot of clients to be contacting. You can't be on the phone with each of them for half an hour going through this exercise. There won't be enough time in the day and the week and everything as you go through this transition to be reaching out to all the clients you need to be reaching out to. So you need to find a way to try to keep this as concise as possible. Now, you don't want them to feel rushed. Obviously, your top clients, to the degree they want to keep talking and keep asking questions, you might need to make it a little bit of a longer phone call. But when you have a lot of clients to be reaching out to, you can't make all of these a really long call. Again, go back to what I just said. It shouldn't be a long call in the essence that you shouldn't be spewing off 8 different bullet points and topics. You want to explain what you're doing, ask them if they have any questions, explain next steps, and most of the time they're going to be fine and ready to move on. That's it. Wrap the call up, proceed on to the next, because you just don't have enough time to make it a lengthy call with all of your clients. Number 7, this does kind of relate. Something I've heard some teams do is they will type up, it's usually like a one-pager, an FAQ. And so it's some common questions that maybe they feel their clients will have, and they've just spent the time to kind of write out those questions, write out thoughtful answers, kind of wordsmithed it, made it look nice, got a nice little graphic design on a one-pager. And so particularly if a client maybe expresses they want some more details on this, or they're not understanding something, or they are wanting the call to go a little longer than maybe you're able to accommodate, it is nice. Some advisors have done this, say, hey, great, I have an FAQ, happy to send that to you here. Once off the call, it'll give you a little more details. But by all means, after everything we've said together here, after you've looked at that, if you still have questions, by all means, get back to me. Happy to address those. So that's a way to kind of shorten a call if you need to. That's a kind of a way to accommodate that engineer client that maybe does want more detailed notes. And what I would go back to is if you liked this idea and you ran with it, is have that on deck. You don't necessarily need to proactively send it to every client, because again, you're not hiding anything. But if there's not cause for concern, which there shouldn't be on their part, there's no reason to introduce some variable that will cause concern, which would then take you time to have to further explain it and get them comfortable with it. Again, if they were comfortable with it from the get-go. But it might be good to have available for those circumstances where you feel it'd be good to be able to say, hey, let me send this to you as a follow-up. So that is something I've seen some folks do. Number 8, kind of related to this, is have a clear plan for what you are communicating to the clients as to what comes next right after you hang up the phone. So for many of you, it'll be explaining why you're doing this, explaining, again, what's in it for the client, and then you'll be ending it by saying, hey, great, so-and-so on our team is going to send you an email, and it will have the exact 3 steps I need you to please do from here. And you'll, whatever that is, you'll be clicking on a link. It's going to take you to a DocuSign. It's just 2 quick links that will automatically move your account, blah, blah, blah. Whatever that next step is, one, have that process ready to go. Have your team ready to go. So the minute you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones is ready to go, I've spoke to them, next steps, they will kick that off, and then practice and understand how you will explain that to clients. And that's kind of how you end the call that you're having with us. Hey, assuming that call goes well, they say, sure, happy to proceed. Just let me know what I need to do. You want to give them that quick primer on here's what will follow once I hang up the phone. So what are those next steps? Make sure you have that dialed in. And then the final tip I would give you is try your best to not fear how these conversations would go. And I recently made an episode on some of the most stressful parts of transition into the RIA model, if you want to check that episode out. And advisors naturally, there's always some amount of stress of, are my clients going to follow me? I talk about that a good amount in that episode, so I won't say it again here, so go check that out. Advisors, I don't want to say fear, but these phone calls that they have with clients, again, until you've done 1, until you've done 5, until you've done 10, until you've done 20, it's going to be new. It's going to be something you've possibly never had to explain before. So there is a little, hey, you got to get comfortable with it. But I would tell you not to fear this. Countless times I've had advisors and teams understandably express a degree of anxiety leading up to that resignation date for all kinds of reasons. But oh gosh, how are my clients going to take this? How is it going to go? And I said this in the recent episode as well. For anyone that has done their homework, so researched a new path, thoroughly. If you want to go in the RIA model, do you fully understand all the reasons why I do it? Blah, 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 blah. That's everything I help advisors with, is figure all that out. And you've done your due diligence on how you're going to go about doing that. Start your own RIA, join an RIA, whatever. You've done all that. And we're talking, this is months and months and months of work here. You've done all that. You've put in all the logistics to make the transition. If you've got that far, and a lot of folks might not make it that far, they might realize this is not for them, and that's the end of it. If you've made it that far, the overwhelming amount of your clients are going to follow you. There's almost no instances I can recall in my 20 plus years where someone got through all of that, and by the way, didn't have some one-off where they were like terminated from their prior firm or something like that. So if this was a methodical, well thought out process, the normal process. I have not had an instance in the 20 years where they did all of that and then they made the move and they were wildly off on how many clients they thought would follow them. They thought 90 to 95 would and only 30. I have not experienced that in my 20 years. if someone made it all the way through this process. So you should know that, and you will likely be in that same bucket, that you will fear it and your fears will turn out to be unfounded. Just like you might have some anxiety over those conversations with clients and how are they going to take it? Are they going to be receptive to this? And I get it. And it's easy for me to say, oh, don't worry about it. You're the one that has to make those calls. You're the one that has to make a conversation. So I sympathize with that. But I can't tell you how many times I've had this kind of conversation before the advisor team resigns. And then usually it's weeks later because they're so busy, we haven't got a chance to debrief on it. And they say, my gosh, those calls went a lot easier than I feared they would. My clients were so receptive to it. In almost every instance, it's sure, go ahead, tell me what the next steps are. And they realized their fears were completely unfounded. So there's always exceptions. I don't want to say, 100% of every instance and every circumstance and every scenario is all the same. It's not. That's why it's so important to work through all these steps individually and with someone like myself that can make sure you're thinking all these things through. But you will fear how these conversations will go. And more almost guaranteed on the back end, you'll say, wow, those went significantly better than I feared. And it was silly for me to fear having those conversations as much as I did. I'm just saying that from experience. That's what I've seen over and over again. So the final thing I'll leave you with, these were kind of some blocking and tackling things, call a few B clients before A client stuff. But still, it's, how are you going to explain why you're doing this again with them in mind, what's in it for them? And so just a line that I don't even remember where I first got this from. I don't remember if I heard it from an advisor or just kind of pieced it together myself. I've just been repeating it so long. Unfortunately, I don't remember kind of how it got into my verbiage. But a thing I oftentimes suggest to advisors and teams to think about how they're going to communicate this is, again, because you have to explain why you're doing this without bashing your prior firm, without trying to suggest that wasn't a good solution for all the years perhaps you were there or they were there. And so a line that I often communicate or suggest that advisors think about, and maybe you wordsmith it a little to be more in your voice, but is to basically say, hey, clients, as the industry continues to evolve, I owe it to you to make sure that I continue to evolve my practice to keep up with all the changes in the industry. Hence, this is why I'm taking this next step, blah, blah, blah. And that's true. You go back a couple decades, it was all stockbrokers. Everything was transactional. Everything was commission-based. That's typically not the case anymore. It's wildly changed. So the industry does change. And a lot of those folks, perhaps that was you if you've been around long enough, have had to evolve with it. And so it's quite reasonable just to suggest that, hey, the industry's evolved, I continue to evolve. That's a way to kind of suggest that what has worked for the last couple years, or maybe longer, depending on how long you're at your firm, perhaps it's just no longer the best path for how things have changed to and now going forward. And you haven't directly bashed your prior firm. You've just said you, in the interest of the clients, which is true, are continuing to evolve to benefit them as well. So just something to think about, again, whether you like that idea or not like that idea, or maybe that sparks some, or you put it in your own voice. That's something I just typically throw out to advisors and teams to be thinking about how they're going to communicate this. So like I said at the top, my name is Brad Wales with Transition to RIA. This is the sort of thing I help advisors with, everything from the very beginning, should you even be exploring this model, to all the things you need to be thinking about and doing to actually make it possible to reach this point where you're possibly picking up the phone and having with clients and then are excited to share this new path with them and everything we talked about today. I can help you as well on that from that very beginning piece all the way through the process. First things first, head on over to transitiontoria.com. We can find all the resources I make available. As I said, this entire series is available in video format, podcast format. I have articles, I have white papers, and at the top of every page is a contact link. If you click on that, you can instantly and easily schedule time to have a conversation with me, whether you want to chat about today's topic or anything else RIA related. I'm happy to do so. Again, transitiontoria.com. And with that, I hope you found value in today's episode, and I'll see you on the next one.